we have to stop. And that's what I did. Like for many, many years, I didn't feel safe to express how I felt. So I would just stuff my feelings down. And then I found myself like, all those feelings and emotions building up, building up, building up. And then I would just like, my husband would say something and I would get triggered and having a mental emotional breakdown. So I think it's really important that we have conversations with our clients and the people we're working with, like really understanding what's going on in their world, not just the physical symptoms, but the emotional things that are happening too. Do they have the support at home? Because that's so important. And because it's really affecting like what state we're in. So yeah, not only that, if you're in a survival state, you're going to have tight, tense muscles, but it's firing up your adrenals. So a lot of women will crave like salt and sugar. And that's because our muscles need that glucose to fuel our muscles. We also need the salt for our muscles and to fire up our adrenals. So a lot of women will get those cravings, but also it will slow down signals to our reproductive organs. And so we're not producing as much hormones like progesterone, for example. And progesterone is our pregnancy hormone, but it also is our feel good, happy hormone and helps us to sleep at night. So something that's very common that I see in women when they're stressed out and they're in a survival state, they have lower progesterone levels because their adrenals are being fired up. The body's focusing more on producing cortisol, their progesterone drops, and now they can't sleep at night. They're having PMS, they're having period problems. They can't get pregnant because we need progesterone for all that and anxiety, because low progesterone, you're calm, you're happy, or high progesterone, you're calm and happy. But if the progesterone drops, now you're a little bit anxious on edge. And that's where those mood swings come in. So that's really important to understand because you can take all the supplements in the world to support your progesterone, but if you're in that sympathetic state, it doesn't matter. And, so that's the link there when it comes to, and not only that, going back to the histamines, when you're in a sympathetic state, it also affects your immune system. It actually is going to flare up more histamines in your body, and you're not going to be able to break them down efficiently, because now you have this ramped up immune and inflammatory response short term. Long term, eventually the immune system gets suppressed in terms of like fighting infections. So a lot of women will be getting sick all the time and they're like, well, I don't understand. I'm like taking my vitamin D and vitamin C and zinc. I'm getting sick all the time. Well, because you're in a survival state. We need to calm down your nervous system. So now your immune system support, you can break down those histamines. You're happy, you're sleeping, and you're having regular periods again. And most importantly, I was going to say, and your pelvic floor is nice and relaxed.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking back when I was a surgery resident and not knowing any of this stuff. I remember sitting in the cafeteria with a plate of salt and like sticking my finger in the salt because of that salt craving. I could not get enough salt. And then the sweets. And then you do that. And now you throw your gut off. And now we get back into that circular pattern.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you get into this vicious cycle. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I used to crave sugar a lot. And now I know why, because I was constantly in a sympathetic state. And so now that my body's calmer, if I push myself a little bit and I'm not being mindful of what state I'm in, I will start to crave sugar. And then I know I'm like, oh, I'm overdoing it. I need to get my body back into that parasympathetic state. And then the cravings go away. It's like magic.
And I've seen that too, like with people, when then they start craving the sugars and now all of a sudden then they end up with recurrent yeast infections.
Yes.
And then they go, why is this happening? And we're like, well, you're feeding the yeast that's in your gut and now it's overgrowing. And now it's amazing with the body, like how many things are connected.
It really is. It really is. Absolutely.
So just in wrapping up, what would be like one thing that you would tell people like to do if they find that maybe some of the things we mentioned are kind of like, hey, that's me. Like, where should they start?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I love to give this exercise. It's called emotional home exercise because you can kind of tune in to see what state is your body in right now. Are you in a parasympathetic state or are you in a sympathetic state? So tune in to see how you're feeling emotionally. And what I recommend is to set a timer on your phone for an hour. So every hour, When it goes off, take a moment, just tune in. How are you feeling? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling overwhelmed, sad? Whatever it is, write that down. And those are what I just listed are called low vibrating emotions. And when you're in a low vibrating emotion, that means you're in a survival state. But if you're feeling happy, love, joy, gratitude, peace, fulfillment, those are high vibrating emotions. You're in a parasympathetic state. That's like a great way to test and see, yeah, which state you're in, because the first step is to have awareness. Once I recognize like my emotional home was anxiety, like most of the day, I was like, okay, I need to do something about it. So that's a great way. And you can do this. I recommend do this for like 3 to 5 days consecutively. So, like on average, what is your emotional home? Because we're going to feel different emotions throughout the day, but what emotion are you feeling most of the time? Because that will tell you, are you mostly in a parasympathetic or sympathetic state? And if you're in a sympathetic state, okay, now what can I do to calm my body down? And that's where you can add in when you start to feel that emotion of like anxiety or overwhelm, fear, doubt, worry, whatever it is that you're feeling, just tune in and then you can take a couple breaths. Breath work is actually, it's free, it's easy, and you can just do it right then and there. And all you have to do is just take a couple breaths. There's a study that says like just taking 6 deep breaths can just change your state. And so if you can take 6 deep breaths, you're going to be able to calm, because the deep breathing actually stimulates our vagus nerve. And that's the main nerve that actually turns on or off or switches us from that parasympathetic to sympathetic state. So yeah, it can be as simple as that. Now, if you find that it's just happening very frequently or it's not working, now we got to do some digger work to find out, okay, what's the root cause, or even checking into the mindset, because sometimes it can be beliefs and conditioning that we have to dig in a little bit. And my goal is to like, when that's the case, like rewire the brain and the body. But for the most part, I'd say start there, start with tuning in, see how you feel. If you feel those low vibrating emotions, just take some breaths. And there's different types of breath work you can do, but it can just be as simple as taking 6 deep breaths.
This is great advice. Thank you, Kate, for being with us. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can definitely find me online at yourradianthealth.com. And I have a clarity call. So if you're like on this journey and you're like, wow, this is exactly what I'm going through, or this is what I think is the missing piece, let's hop on a clarity call. I'd love to spend more time with you and just kind of see where you're at in your journey and just get clear. What do you really want when it comes to your health, and help you to create a plan on how to make that happen. But I'm also on Instagram as well. So you can find me at the Kate Vasquez, and it's Vasquez with 2 Z's, double Z. So VAZQEC. And send me a message there too. Like I'm very active on Instagram. I'm always just sharing little tips and tidbits when it comes to like anxiety, stress, and our hormones. So you can find me there if you have questions or just want to chat with me. Just send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy. This was awesome.